So I use politics a lot to just kind of try to, from an unbiased perspective, bring people back to the center. If you guys are familiar with the Sephiroth, if you understand the tree of life, and the tree, and even further, if you understand that the tree of life is within you, right? And the tree of knowledge of good and evil is this illusion that the orchestrators of this physical reality, the fallen angels, if you will, created to keep us trapped in a dualistic perspective where there is a good and there is an evil. But the fact of the matter is that all energy is simply just energy, and by way of the state of your mind is how you actually interpret the energy, right? So if you're in a fallen state of consciousness, if you're in a state of victim mentality, then you're going to feel like certain things that are coming at you are energetically evil. But that's not the case. It's you defining it in a conditional world, a physical reality that creates this evil, lower density energy within you that keeps you in that fallen state of consciousness. But if we accept and allow all things, this is what it actually means to surrender and allow, to recognize the separation and the attachments that we have to certain ideologies that keep us in this restriction of becoming one, right? Because we're all one. I am you, you are I, and together in unity, Christ consciousness, this is the story of oneness where we're all fractals of the same source energy. And that's what this chart is about. It's not demonic in any sort of way. And I know that there's a lot of people in the spiritual community that see this chart and say, why are we still talking about sins? This sin isn't something that's going to send you to a lake of fire, okay? It's a condemnation to the self, the highest self. It's simply your pattern of behaviors that prevent you from being authentically you. And it's really simple when you understand how the root chakra, like all the chakras work, but your spiritual work begins in the root chakra. I like to break this one down because it's the easiest to understand, and it's also for those of you guys that are on the fence, it's the easiest way to understand how to begin to actually do the work of becoming the higher self. The mantra in the root chakra, I am that I am, right? So this is where you start to understand manifestations, you start to understand affirmations and everything, that you are creating your own reality. That's the power of I am. Whatever you say after I am, right? The power of our thoughts. What you think you are, right? And so when we talk about words like, do I deserve this or whatever, it was like, if you're thinking, even subconsciously, like maybe you have to bring this into your own awareness, subconsciously thinking that this is what you deserve, that's what you're going to get, because that's who you are, right? So there's a lot of conversations around money today, why, poor versus rich and all that stuff, and it's like, what, I don't deserve to be poor and everything. But at the same time, when you victim blame things to happening to you, then you're creating this reality, you're creating this acceptance, you're affirming that that's what you deserve. I hate the word deserve, by the way, because we don't deserve traumas, but we recognize that traumas are an opportunity for us to become super powerful spiritual beings. There's a lesson, there's a blessing in all trauma. And obviously certain traumas that happen, like you hear childhood traumas. One of the things that we talk about when we talk about shadow work is we have to go within and heal the child. Your child is more interconnected to the higher self than you are. And when you actually hear people say, like, become the child, like, the child has no fear. That's another thing to keep in mind. Is like what we're talking about in a dualistic reality is that we live in a fear-based reality, which is why politics, basically, especially in the United States of America, Incorporated, we have a dualistic party system. But I'm here to tell you that those two illusions are actually working for the same puppeteers pulling the strings. Their intentions are for you to not recognize that you are Christ, that you are God, okay, as a fractal of God, not a singular deity. That's why a lot of people don't like hearing that. But the bottom line is that you're free from this dualistic reality, the two-party system. And that's why when I talk about stuff like that, like, there is no separation of the church and state. If you're familiar with scriptures, the church is the body, the temple, right? When Jesus Christ, the beautiful red words throughout the gospel, he's referring to the body of Christ, the body, the church, and everything. And when he says stuff like God is within, the kingdom of God is within you, Luke 17:21, even Paul says it in Romans 8:10 through 13. We learn that this body, this fleshly body, this is the church. It isn't actually about going to a physical building, right? Because nothing is outside of yourself, okay? Everything is within. And once you understand how to love thyself, you're capable of loving thy neighbor. So to love yourself is to go outside of yourself, to truly love your whoever without judgment, even your enemies. So the temple is the church right, being the body, and then the state, when we talk about a separation of church and state, which is an illusion created by the cabal, the Jesuits, the Zionists, whoever it actually is that are trying to prevent you from understanding your greatest superpower, that you're completely free, that you're sovereign. Sovereignty, there's a lot of people talking about sovereignty where we have to go to the courts and become free of our social security numbers and birth certificates and capital letters and all that stuff. And that's true to a certain extent, but if you're still filling out paperwork, you're still playing their game. To be sovereign is to recognize that there is no law outside of you understanding that God is within, so to love thyself so that you're capable of loving your neighbor, which is why the two greatest commandments are a cyclical flow of energy. Not anything with an angle, right, is meant to create a stoppage of flow. So when you hit that right angle, then you have to build energy back up here to turn the corner. When you understand that all energy is cyclical, right, 369, and it's a constant flow. It's a frequency that is never ending. It's constantly evolving. Therefore, the truth is constantly evolving. So if you become stagnant, the truth may evolve without you, and then you have to deconstruct and do this all over again. But if you understand that you know nothing, right? You know absolutely nothing, is to recognize that every day you wake up, you have to discover this truth all over again. There's a lot of people that believe once they come into a state of Christ consciousness, they have it forever. You've just leveled up. Every day is new level, new devil, right? Because there's going to be certain things that continue to manifest into your life until you become the yogi, the master, the guru, the Christ that understands why the adversary is still showing up. Because again, by way of desire, by way of what you deserve, you're manifesting the energies by way of your subconscious and even your unconscious mind. So what's an unconsciousness, right? When we breathe, we don't have to tell ourselves to breathe, right? That's involuntary, it just happens. And then there's a subconscious breath that's happening too. So when you become angry or envious or anything, your breathing changes, right? So that's the subconscious understanding of breath, where it's actually an unconscious thing, it's involuntary. And then when you become a spiritual being and you understand that you can take over your breathing, like why the breathing exercises are so powerful for you to become calm in a meditative state where you can actually have conversations in your prayer closet with God, is to take over your breathing. So there's I don't know if you guys haven't started doing breathing exercises, start with box breathing. For those of you that struggle with depression and anxiety, which is the work that you need to do in a blocked root chakra. It's an imbalance between your feminine and masculine energy. To go into your root chakra and is to meditate. It's to ground. Okay, and earthing is a part of grounding. So letting your bare feet touch the earth and synchronizing with trees, putting your hand on a tree, talking to trees, talking to just all things nature, like tweeting, singing with birds, all of that stuff kind of brings you back into your environment to get you to a place where you feel safe, because ultimately a blocked root chakra is insecurities by way of depression and anxiety, believing you don't deserve your environment, believing you don't deserve the circumstances in your life and everything. But when you get to a place where you recognize this is your opportunity for spiritual growth and where the work begins, you start to create your authentic self by remembering who you truly are, because you are the earth. From dust we were made, and to dust we shall return. There's great esoteric understanding as to why bodies are put back in the earth and all that stuff. You are the earth. Reconnect with the earth. And the earth element, of course, is when we understand when we're talking about earth, you hear Gaia, you hear all these other wise words about the feminine energy and everything. And that's actually what's actually happening in our world. Is there's a lot of people that really came into this awareness in 2020 and is starting to embrace this feminine energy, which is about wisdom, nurture, right? And truth and love. That combination of truth and love by just recognizing that the healing power of love, right? That we were coming from this great divide, right? Where there's a right and left truth, and there's a conservative and liberal, and they're all fighting over who's the better president to be, blah, blah, whatever. And then COVID happened and all these different events continuously happening, and it just continued to expand this divisiveness, where there's people that aren't awake are stuck and believing that their superhero, Trump, or their other superhero, Biden, or even at the time some Bernie Sanders or whatever it was, you know what I mean? They put everything into believing that this person, this physical person in this physical reality outside of themselves, is here to save them, here to protect their financial wealth, right? Their individualism, their commerce. Whereas it's all a part of a grand scheme of things to keep us forbidden from the actual truth, which is understanding that you are creating your own reality. It has nothing to do with Joe Biden or Donald